Chapter 32. The saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is only shaitan who suggests fearing of his friends. The saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه فلا تخافوهم وخافون إن كنتم مؤمنين.
it is only shaitan who suggests fearing of his friends. Do not fear them, but fear me if you are indeed believers. Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 175. And he subhanahu wa ta'ala said,
إنما يعمر مساجد الله من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة ولم يخش إلا الله.
The masjids of Allah are only to be maintained by those who believe in Allah and the last day, establish prayer, pay zakat, and do not fear except Allah. It is only those that can be among the guided. Surah At-Tawbah, chapter 9, verse 18.
ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله فإذا أوذي في الله جعل فتنة الناس كعذاب الله.
And among people are those who say, we believe in Allah, but when they are tested by Allah, they equate the trials of man to Allah's punishment. Surah Al-Ankabut, chapter 29, verse 10. From Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, among the weakening of the certainty is to please the people by displeasing Allah, and to praise them for what Allah provided, and to blame them for what Allah did not give you. Allah's providing is not due to wishful desires, nor is it withheld by the loathing of one who hates it. From Aisha Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha, that Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, whoever seeks Allah's pleasure at the expense of the displeasure of people, then Allah will be pleased with him and the people will be pleased with him. And whoever seeks the pleasure of people at the expense of the displeasure of Allah, Allah will be displeased with him and the people will be displeased with him. Recorded by Ibn Hibban in his Sahih. Important points. Number 1, the explanation of the ayah of Surah Al-Imran. Number 2, the explanation of the ayah of Surah Al-Bara. Number 3, the explanation of the ayah of Surah Al-Ankabut. 4, that certainty weakens and strengthens. 5, signs of its weakening, and these 3 are among them. 6, that sincere fear of Allah is among the obligations. 7, mentioning the reward of he who achieves it. 8, mentioning the punishment of he who avoids it. Commentary by al-Sadi. The saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is only shaitan who suggests fearing of his friends. Do not fear them, but fear me if you are indeed believers. Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 175. By this chapter, the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, is reminding of the obligation of one to rely with his fear on Allah alone, the prohibition of directing that to creatures, and clarifying that Tawheed is not complete otherwise. Some details are necessary here for clarification and to remove any confusion. Know that fear and dread sometimes occur out of worship, and sometimes naturally and habitually, and that depends upon the causes and related conditions. So if the fear and dread cause deification, worship, and seeking to be near to the one feared, and it inwardly encourages obedience and fearing him secretly, such that it prevents him from disobeying the one feared, then directing it to Allah is among the greatest of the obligations of faith, and directing it to other than Allah is the major shirk that Allah does not forgive, because this is an act associating this worship, which is among the greatest obligations of the heart, to other than Allah along with Allah, and sometimes it increases his fear of the others more than his fear of Allah. Also, whoever fears Allah alone in this way, he is sincere in his Tawheed, and whoever fears other than him, then he has made an equal to Allah in his fearing, just like one who makes an equal to Allah in love. This is like a person who fears earning the anger or displeasure of someone in a grave, so he cancels the favor or whatever occurs by his worshipping the grave. If the fear is natural, like one who fears his enemy or a predator or a snake, etc., then what he fears is the obvious harm. So this type is not worship. It will happen to many of the believers, and it does not negate their faith when he is fearing that which warrants such fear depending upon the cause. Then this fear is not the blameworthy type. If his fear and hesitation is due to one whom there is no reason to fear at all, or there is a poor reason for it, then this is the blameworthy type, which leads its doer to cowardice. The Prophet ﷺ sought refuge in Allah from cowardice because it is among the evil qualities. Complete faith, tawakkul, and courage all defend against cowardice, making the believers sincere, strengthening them, turning their fear to the one who can give them security and tranquility, strengthening their faith and the courage in their hearts, perfecting their reliance upon Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this topic is discussed in the next chapter.